And this is the God 19 video, how time flies when you're having fun. Yeah. So I've been trying to keep up the pace of delivering about one of these a month, and I'm pretty much up to speed on that, a little bit behind maybe, since I started in January 2024. It's been a while since I've done one because it's been a busy summer. I've had a lot of stuff going on. I've been taking a bit of time out for a break as well. But back up to speed with these and a few thoughts I wanted to share with you today. It's actually quite difficult recording videos in the summer months. Right here in the UK, we've had a proper heat wave for several weeks. Really, we had an early spring, kicked off in March, and it's been very warm pretty much throughout. It's actually the hottest summer I can remember for many years. And it's just a bit of a bugger recording videos in this sort of situation because you have to have the window open, otherwise you're just going to melt. And then you get things like lawnmowers and bloody chainsaws and kids playing and dogs barking. So hopefully none of that today, and I can just crack on and gather my thoughts. And really the message for this video is based around the recent interview that I did with Isabella Green. So some viewers may have seen that. This was published as part of my Good Vibrations series. And Isabella is a metaphysical scholar or researcher, I think she calls herself, and an author. And in the video interview, she was explaining that she's developed a method of going out of body and being completely in control of the situation and being able to project herself out of the astral realm. So out of this earthly plane and also out of the immediate layer that lies beyond it, she says, into the infinite. One question that I would have of anyone who really is able to do this is, why the hell would you come back if you've perfected a method of getting out of this hellhole? But either way, Isabella was claiming that her method of doing this is the only one that works if you wish to exit the reincarnation soul trap, if that's what it is. Whatever lies in wait for us when we leave our bodies, she claims that you have to study her method and her tactics to be able to get out of here. And part of that involves doing the practice between 1 and 4 a.m. local time, wherever you happen to live. And she says this is when the practice is at its most effective and you stand the best chance of being able to project yourself out of here. And I did ask the question during the course of our chat, what would happen to someone who has family commitments, for example, kids that you have to get up and be responsible for in the morning? And what if you have a day job? You know, to pay the bills and survive and support your family, you have to get up in the morning. And it's not too conducive to being productive the next day if you've been practicing this methodology between 1 and 4 a.m. And her answer to that was, well, you're either committed or you're not. You know, it's a discipline, and either you want to get out of this place and learn the ways in which you can achieve that, or you don't. And her claim that her method is the only one that really works got me thinking about just how many practitioners make this kind of claim. So Isabella will say that of her work. The next practitioner you come across will claim that they've developed a method of going out of body and projecting themselves out of here, and that only theirs works, and therefore Isabella's and everybody else's is wrong. Then you'll come across somebody else that will say both of them are wrong, and they're the only ones that have the true answer. And this puts me in mind of organized religion. So we get this with each of these religious faiths and their selected deities, savior figures, and holy books. So a Christian will insist that their way is the only way to the one true God, and you have to achieve it through Jesus, acceptance of Jesus, and nothing else will work. You know, Muslims have got it wrong, Buddhists have got it wrong. Meanwhile, a Muslim and a Buddhist or a Jew or a Hindu or a Sikh will claim exactly the same thing of their faith. And they'll say, no, no, you have to go through my Messiah, my Savior, my holy book. My holy text has all the answers. All the others are wrong. So how are you supposed to be able to make an informed decision on which one of them has got it right? Or is it more likely that anyone making the claim that they've got all the answers and that all the others are wrong, and you have to go through them, are wrong themselves? Because Nobody actually has all these answers. As we've observed before in this series, we find ourselves in this reality without any kind of roadmap, any kind of guidebook. We don't know for certain why we're here, how we got here, what force or entity created this place, to what end. We're left to piece it all together and give it our best guess based on the evidence available to us. And we can come to some decisions which seem to make sense. They seem to be logical, based on what we can experience for ourselves, but we certainly don't have all the answers. So it always makes me suspicious of anyone who makes that claim. I seem to recall a sketch in The Simpsons years ago where Homer is questioning whether he and his family have made the correct choice in embracing Jesus and Christianity. I think he's being dragged along to church and he's like, how do we know we've got it right? How do we know Jeebus is the one? And that's a good analogy for the situation that we find ourselves in life. How do we know we've selected the right one? And when it comes to religions, the faith to which you are most likely to adhere is dictated directly by the region of the world that you happen to be born into. So if you're born in Saudi Arabia, it's pretty much a given that you're going to be raised as a Muslim, and you're not going to get access to a lot of Christian texts or Buddhist texts or Jewish texts. You're going to identify as a Muslim because your parents almost certainly did, and your ancestors almost certainly did, and that's just what is dictated and tolerated in that part of the world. So just imagine if, for example, Christianity was the truth, the one way to salvation. How is that fair on Arabs who grow up in a region of the world where they don't get to hear about this stuff? And embracing Christianity or any faith other than Islam is frowned upon. And, you could project that out to certain parts of the United States. Think about the so-called Bible Belt region, which is heavy on Christian ministry and different denominations of Christianity. Very few Muslims there, I would guess. Very few Buddhists and Hindus and Sikhs and Jews. So what if one of those faiths is the correct one? How is someone raised within those families in that part of the world to be given a fair chance at salvation if they simply don't get access to those cultural influences and religious texts and information? It's all nonsense. It makes no sense. And we can't make an informed decision as to which metaphysical practitioner or which religion is the correct one because it's impossible to do so. It's even like that with natural health supplements and such. If we think about this, there's so many practitioners saying that their supplements or their natural health products are the way to go to maintain optimum health in these challenging times. But if you listen to every one of them out there, you'd be popping pills all day long because they'll say you need this supplement, this mineral, this food source. And if you listen to all of them, you'd probably get ill actually from overload of too much of this stuff. So again, how are you supposed to make the decision? How are you supposed to select which one has got it right and which one's got it wrong? So the overriding message here is that everything in these lives, and probably in what lies beyond it, is overcomplicated unnecessarily. What if the truth of the matter is that things are actually quite simple? And when it comes to the big question of what happens to us when we leave these bodies, these lives, and what the process is going to be like that we're going to encounter, maybe that's actually very simple as well. And maybe all these claims about what you need to do to attain enlightenment, I mean, there are practitioners out there that will tell you you have to spend 20 or 30 years perfecting methods of meditation or yoga poses or raising Kundalini energy or illuminating the pineal gland or doing DMT or ayahuasca, whatever it may be. It all does sound very complicated because you can't be doing all of these methods. It's impossible. Apart from anything else, there's just not enough time to embrace them all. So it sounds overcomplicated. It sounds like a lot of distracting noise going on out there because I think that's what it is. And I think it's very simple. When we exit these bodies, we've been hearing a lot about the idea of a reincarnation soul trap and entities, archons, spirit guides, call them what you will, who are likely going to encounter us and try and coerce or guilt trip or gaslight or persuade or even force us to reincarnate into new bodies so that the cycle of fear, pain, suffering just continues. But I actually think, from everything that I've read and studied over these past few months of looking into this subject area, that if we can take our consciousness with us when we exit this realm, so we leave the body behind, but the consciousness goes with us, and therefore everything we've learned, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the insights that we've picked up in these lives, if we can apply that consciousness when we find ourselves in the astral or whatever realm lies beyond, it is simply going to be a case of standing firmly in our sovereign power, recognizing that we are individuated aspects of divinity or the original one true creator God. We are uh, units of that God consciousness. And that, to my thinking, ought to be enough. We ought to be able to say, I choose not to go back to the earthly realm. I choose to move on, or I choose to cease to exist, if that choice is even available to us. And no amount of gaslighting, coercion, or any other manipulative tactics is going to get me to agree to go back into a new life, because I've figured out the trick. I've figured out the trap. I'm wise to it now. I know the way the game is played, and the old tricks just aren't going to work. What if that is enough? What if it's that simple, the key to getting out of here and never coming back and just moving on to somewhere we always should have been and probably never should have left? All the practitioners insisting that you have to adopt this method and study this text and meditate for 8 hours a day is distraction, background noise, and overcomplication. The real key to things is much simpler. That's the wisdom and the accumulated insights that I intend to take with me through my consciousness whenever my time comes. So that's what I wanted to say about that. So for the rest of the video, I want to be reading out some feedback that I've received from previous installments. So I do get a lot of correspondence, either in the form of emails or people posting comments below where they found these videos, whether it's on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, or anywhere else. So I get some really great comments. There's some smart, switched on people out there with a lot of very worthwhile things to say. So as ever, it's a mixed bag, but I'll be reading these out and viewers can make what they will of them. But I've actually found a lot of value in some of these comments myself. So first one, I've been enjoying your God series on YouTube, and your conclusions, unfortunately, make a lot of logical sense to me. When it comes to karma, though, and your claim that good deeds go punished here, whereas evil deeds are rewarded, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this potential counter-argument. So, if I were a god who wanted to design a realm that would test how morally good someone is, then why would I reward good behavior and punish evil behavior? In such a realm, people would exhibit good behavior not as an end in itself, but purely as an act of self-interest to escape divine punishment. How good is that? In contrast, if I designed a realm where good deeds were punished and bad deeds rewarded, then someone who still chooses to do good, even in spite of that, with no thought of divine reward, simply because they know it's the right thing to do, then that person might be said to be acting truly morally. Such a realm as, dare I say it, this one, might be a better test of someone's morality. And as a footnote to that, if this were a testing ground for morality, it would still be an utterly immoral experiment. The more I reflect on it, the more I think the idea of God judging his creations is also a completely demented idea. It's like a writer of fiction punishing his characters for misbehaving. As I said, I struggle to find logical inconsistencies in your worldview, and it is a worldview I increasingly share. A question that still niggles with me is why the vast majority of people seem to love this place and would do absolutely anything to stay, even people with miserable lives. Similarly, all animals subjected to daily terror and violence seem to have this overwhelming desire to cling to life and stay here. Is that survival instinct or love for life hardwired into us to prevent us from leaving? And if so, why are the rulers so intent on killing us off and driving people to suicide? One saving grace I find is the degree of deception in this realm, and potentially after death, implies we're not helpless or unable to escape. Because if we were, no deception would be necessary. And that's a very good point. And the observation there about people, even with miserable lives, instinctively wanting to cling on to them, when you would imagine that they would actually welcome an escape from their pain and suffering in many ways, was underlined to me during the COVID nonsense, where I saw so many old people in very poor, degraded states of health, shuffling around nervously in wheelchairs or on Zimmer frames or just struggling to walk, with masks over their faces, preventing their ability to breathe properly, and looking terrified that some virus was going to come and infect them at any moment and they could die. And they're going out to take the old arm spears to try and keep themselves alive. They're trying to prolong their lives. And it's a very strange thing because in many cases, these people are in their 80s or 90s. And as I say, they're in terrible shape physically, but they just want to keep on living, even in that state. I think with me, I would welcome some sort of release if I were in that terrible shape myself. But it does seem to be hardwired into people, and as this person observes, animals, to want to go on living here no matter what, even though the fear and the suffering in this place is so obvious and so apparent. That's what this realm is. It's all about fear, pain, and suffering. So, why is it a place that we so zealously want to cling on to? It's an interesting thought. Somebody else wrote in to say, I just listened to Isabella, and so it gets even more depressing. Isabella asked, upon death, why would they get rid of a person? They will send them back every time while there's still life in the battery. On Earth, though, they're trying to depopulate. So that doesn't make any sense, does it? I do, however, know 3 trustworthy people who have had out-of-body experiences, and this is astral projection as opposed to dying, but one of them is now dead, and I wonder where she is now. I agree with Isabella in that we can choose to have a more positive experience on Earth and change our perspective. But I'm not sure how children who are being trafficked or the innocents in Gaza fit into that possibility. Right. So, would we maintain that kind of perspective if we were unfortunate enough to have been born into a family where satanic ritual abuse and trauma-based mind control is prevalent everywhere? It seems to be people who are doing reasonably okay in life and are quite comfortable who are able to maintain that positive kind of outlook. I think you would get a different perspective from somebody in that kind of position, unfortunate enough to be there. One more to look at here as a footnote to that previous one. Thanks once more for continuing to put out content. I am still enjoying listening to and reading your material. I have a little feedback on your latest podcast featuring Isabella Green. Well, what an interesting lady. However, anytime I hear anyone say this is absolute, I become suspicious. Further, she is suggesting she knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is what happens when you die, and yet she lives. Right, I think that goes back to my observation or my question of why you would bother coming back here. I suppose her answer would be that she wants to help others and assist them in this process. But I think if I'd perfected a method of projecting myself out of the astral and into whatever lies beyond, I would probably want to stay there. I'd have no interest in coming back. Maybe that's just me. So, some very profound insights here from a good friend of mine on Facebook. I don't name names in these videos because people don't always appreciate being called out by name. But this guy has said this: I've been experiencing some very deep insights recently. At the heart of it, yes, it's about remembering who we are, about peeling away the layers of identification until only awareness remains. Still, the question lingers. Why would infinite awareness choose to experience this body, this family, this timeline, this strange illusion of separation? If awareness is truly infinite, then it must already contain all possibilities, all experiences, all forms, including the illusion of not being infinite. It would know all this. So why would it choose to forget itself and forget all this knowledge? Why the veiling? Why the fragmentation into form, into fear, into forgetfulness? What actually is the point? This is what makes this life feel like a trap sometimes. Not a physical prison, but a perceptual one, a filtering of experience through the five senses, conditioned thought, and programmed belief. We look out into the world and think, this is it. That's the illusion, the narrowing of the lens, the forgetting of the vastness we are. Then I got a couple of further insights from my friend here, who was obviously thinking further about these ideas and further offered these outlooks. So the reincarnation loop is just one layer of a much bigger reality. Manipulators run that layer like a rigged casino, keeping players stuck, but they're still inside a far larger system with rules and truths they can't control. It's like being stuck in a rigged casino in one district of a vast city. The casino's rules feel like the entire law of reality while you're inside it, but outside the city and beyond that, the whole world runs on entirely different principles. The casino owners might seem powerful, but they're still operating inside a much larger reality they can't touch. And then a further insight to that: from one perspective, I see them as the loop's controllers, a mix of entities, architects, and hidden beneficiaries, strong within it, yet still confined by a greater reality beyond their reach. And from one perspective, the casino owners aren't truly free or all-powerful. I guess here the casino owners are what we might think of as archons. They've mastered control inside the loop, but they're still stuck in it themselves. It's like inmates who've claimed the best cell block. They run things there, but they're still behind the same walls. Their grip on others might actually be a way of avoiding their own escape, because letting go of control would force them to confront the larger reality that they've been hiding from. On to the next one, and switching up the theme here. A bit of background. I didn't believe in God or Satan until I got into Flat Earth, trigger alert, 4 years ago. Since then, I've been trying to lead a better life. I don't do church because I see all the corruption and evil within organised religions. I read the Bible and have gotten to know it quite well and had come on board with the Satan's little season thing about a year ago. I've prayed for many things over the last few years, and if I'm honest, nothing's happened. The people I prayed to be healed or helped are still the same, or they've died. I felt like no one's listening, apart from one time where 2 years ago I asked for help and it did seem to come. But that was a one-off because ever since I felt like no one's was listening to me, so had drifted away from prayer. I watched your God One video and was resonating with most of what you were saying. I cried because I don't want to be here either, and I've even prayed asking if I could just cease to exist too when the end comes, as I don't want to live forever. And I think there's some profound truth in that observation there. I have no idea why or how we got here or what the point of it all is. As I said earlier, none of us do. And I have a lot of respect for people who can admit that they just don't know. I'm more suspicious and sometimes contemptuous of those who insist that they've got all the right answers and only their way will do. So, somebody else. Hi, Mark. It's been a while since I reached out to you. Your God 18 video made me want to drop you a couple of lines. I think your analysis of this realm is spot on. There's no way this place in its present existence could have been the brainchild of an all-loving entity, especially the point you made about biology. From personal experience, I can confirm that the pain mechanism is absolute terror. I've been suffering from chronic pain for the past 22 years. Not a single day has passed without it. That adds up to some 8,000 days of ongoing pain. I've tried everything from changing my diet in various ways over the years, consulting literally hundreds of doctors, therapists, healers, and even shamans. I exercise, I tried breath work, and I even got surgery. Did any of this help? Not the slightest. So tell me, where's the warning function in all this? If that's all pain is for, letting us know there's something wrong in our bodies. So what if we then address the problem, having been alerted to it, and it doesn't get better? The pain continues. It's not an early warning pain receptor methodology, is it? I tried to entertain the idea that this realm was paradise originally and got captured by the evil forces. But that doesn't answer the questions about the design of this place, the food chain, the nervous system, digestion, etc. And even if this had been a heavenly realm before then, why on earth, how on earth was it possible to kidnap the place? This should have been foreseen by an all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful God, right? If God is the omnipotent creator of everything, then he or it has created evil as well. There's no way around that, no matter how hard religious people try to bend and wind their minds. But what's the conclusion? If this is a copied universe and there exists an original world somewhere else, then the creator must have included the possibility that souls get coerced and trapped into this hell here. Why? What benefit does that bring to anyone? It doesn't bring any benefits to us, certainly. And what benefits could it bring to higher consciousness in turn? Or if we're just aspects of the one, as in non-duality, then this universal consciousness must be out of its freaking mind to want to experience anything like this. The idea that these lives are all for our own benefit in terms of our souls, and we come here to learn lessons and undergo these experiences to grow and evolve, is one which has come out of more New Age belief systems in more modern times. And they seem to have been created to counter all the dogma and the doctrines of more organized Orthodox religions. So it puts me in mind of a political situation where in the UK, for example, we have two major political parties, and it's that case in America with the Democrats and Republicans, and most countries around the world, actually. You'll have one political party which is perceived as being more right-wing, and their opponents are perceived as being more liberal or left-wing. But the reality is they're all pushing the same agendas at the end of the day because they're all answering to the same bosses when you go high enough up the hierarchy there. So there's no real choice, there's just the illusion of choice. But occasionally, people even seem to question the two-party system. And they'll say, why do we have to choose between this extreme and this other extreme? Why are those the only two options available to us? And so you get a third party being offered. And in the UK right now, that is Reform, headed by Nigel Farage, and a lot of people are gravitating towards this party because they're so disillusioned with what Keir Starmer and his Labour regime has done to Britain. But what if that's a diversion and some sort of psyop as well? What if we don't need any of these political parties? None of them are the real answer to how we get free and how we avoid human slavery and tyranny encroaching in our lives. What if it's that way with spirituality? You have the organized religions, you have these more new age spiritual ideas which counter a lot of those. But what if they're just as invalid as the religious systems in the first place? And what if the truth to emancipation spiritually lies outside of all these ideas, all these doctrines, all these systems. So, a couple more brief ones to read out here. Constant distraction with political clown shows, psyops galore. I agree that nothing can be done by us humans to fix it. Best we can do is avoid the traps as much as possible and enjoy what we can. And I'll just jump in there because this has very much become my outlook on life. I've been into conspiracy or alternative research for many, many years, and I've studied the multitude of ways in which this realm is totally and utterly fucked up. And I've come to realize that it's been this way for millennia, not even centuries. It's millennia. It's as far back as anyone can go in known human history. And there have been multiple opportunities for humanity to potentially rise up against the evil forces that have dominated it, the so-called elite ruling forces of whatever time frame we're talking about, and finally shake off that evil and that tyranny and gain back some freedom and autonomy for itself. And yet it's never happened. Or in cases where it has, it's been for very short, very temporary periods before everything's been put back down under control again. And so my view, which some would consider to be quite nihilistic, is that this realm actually can't be fixed. It's operating exactly the way it was set up to be. It was designed to cultivate fear, pain, and suffering. It was designed to keep humans enslaved and controlled and subjugated. And it's doing great from the point of view of the architects of it. So we can't actually fix it. I think we make the mistake of assuming that if we just vote in the right political party, or we just adopt the right level of consciousness, or we adopt the right behaviors and outlooks and principles in our lives, then we can improve the situation for all of humanity. But if it were possible for us to have done that, do we not think that it would have happened by now, by this point in the human timeline, however long we've been around? What if it's unfixable? And what if the best we can hope for, those of us that have realized this, is simply to reduce suffering as much as we can, observing that everyone else and all other living sentient beings are in the same boat as us. We all find ourselves in this reality, having to make the best of it, having to find our way through. So we certainly shouldn't be cruel and dispassionate towards others. We should show empathy. We should show kindness. We should help and support each other wherever we can. And also, if this realm is powered by fear and pain and suffering, then we should seek to reduce that where we can, because that's a nice kick in the balls and two fingers up to the forces that created this place, right? They want fear, pain, suffering. We're reducing that and trying to bring in a bit of joy and happiness and calm. That's a revolutionary act. But other than that, all we can really hope to do is to enjoy ourselves as much as we can, as far as that's possible. I realize that when you look at these subjects, enjoyment becomes difficult in many cases because the old things that we used to find joy in no longer work for us because, we've seen behind the veil and we've learned a thing or two about how this place is constructed and what all these various aspects of organized society are really there for. But it's very important that we individually find things that can bring us small pockets of pleasure and joy and fulfillment and satisfaction, and to embrace those, to bring them into our lives as far as we're able, and to not feel guilty about having fun, enjoying ourselves. I've fallen into this trap before, somewhere along this journey I've been on. I found myself feeling guilty whenever I was enjoying something in life, because I'd be reminded that there are many who are not enjoying themselves at that time. They're going through horrible situations. But really, what could I do at that moment in time to alleviate their situations? And why should I negate a bit of joy for myself on the grounds that others are suffering when I can do nothing to assist them? Me denying myself that small pocket of joy is increasing the amount of pain and suffering in the world, and decreasing the amount of joy and happiness in the world by a very small degree. And we need to try and reverse that equation as far as we can. So we shouldn't feel guilty about doing things that we enjoy, that bring pleasure, as long as it's hurting no one else. If it's causing no harm, then it's not a problem. So the last one to read out, I wanted to respond to your God 2 video with some thoughts of my own, which I've not heard anywhere else. In the eternal struggle between good and evil, God and Satan, if you like, evil gained the upper hand and shattered God's consciousness into a trillion separate pieces and trapped them on the earth as individual life forms. These pieces have an inherent instinct to come together to create the whole once again, and evil must constantly work to keep them separate. That's a pretty good analogy or metaphor, I think, to end on. So that's been the message for God 19. God 20 is up next. And I'm thinking of getting a guest on for that so that we can have a discussion about some of the themes, some of the topics that this series has explored so far. So I may do that, or I may do a solo monologue. I'll just see how things evolve on that front. Other than that, plenty going on with my other activities. My music industry research is ongoing, of course. My book, No One's Dad's a Plumber, the fourth in the Musical Truth series, has been out for a few months, and I'm still doing talks and events to present content from that. As things currently stand, I'm going to be in Thiel, just outside Reading, this coming Saturday. That's the 16th of August. Then I'm going to be in Southampton on the 30th of August at River Studios in Totton. That's an afternoon presentation. Prior to that, bank holiday weekend finds me at a couple of festivals, music festivals, delivering DJ sets. Friday, 22nd of August, I'm going to be at the Hope Freedom Music Festival in Battle, East Sussex. And on the Sunday, 24th of August, bank holiday weekend, I'm going to be up in Cumbria for WTF. That's the Weekend Truth Festival, Workington in the Lake District. Then into September, early September, finds me speaking at Liber Pulko. Been invited to go out to Liberland, which is an area of Serbia, which is like a sovereign kind of free state in the corner of that nation, which is declaring its own sort of sovereign status. So quite excited to be delivering a presentation and a workshop and a DJ set at Liber Pulko, and that's going to be on Friday, the 5th of September. And then further on in September, Tuesday the 9th, I'm at Stoke near Weston-super-Mare, and that's going to be a presentation based around the new book, but also my second stand-up comedy routine, giving that a go again. After all, this world is so utterly absurd and farcical that it oughtn't to be difficult to find dark, bleak comedic content, right? So that's Tuesday, 9th of September. Then I'm going to be with Sheep Farm back in London on the 27th of September. Dom, Chris, and myself presenting our latest research and findings. That's at the comedy club there. Forget the name of it right now, but it's Lee Hurst's Comedy Club in Bethnal Green. So that will do for now. All my activities are detailed at djmarkdevlin.com. I do have a Patreon page for anyone that's found value in my work and is interested in getting access to exclusive content that I don't post elsewhere. The latest one I've done has been entitled Dark Occult Aspects of Led Zeppelin. And the next one coming will be on the group Black Sabbath. So that's on the Patreon now. And if you want to join that, and just help support me and keep my work going, all support is gratefully appreciated, and the link to that is in the notes below. Other than that, see you next time for God 20, and yeah, have fun.